So, hi everybody. I thought I record something about elders and elderhood and about wise elders. And I was prompted to do that because lately I have been invited at conferences and also festivals to speak about the subject. Having been dragged kicking and screaming into elderhood now, um, age-wise, but also through my long uh, career and working in psychology, psychotherapy, but also as a shamanic teacher and medicine woman. And I gave the idea of elderhood some thought. And of course, in our society, elders are belittled. They are not taken seriously. They don't play a role in many cases. They are actually put on the scrap heap. And I find that very, very sad. At the age of 70, which I'm now, I feel I still have a lot to give. And I have more to give now, maybe than 20 years ago, because certain things have changed and they change with age and with life experience. And I wanted to just talk a bit about it. Now, elderhood, generally speaking, uh, is something which we need to redefine, I think, in our society. And we need to get away from the idea that only people which are productive within a capitalist system, basically, uh, uh, earning, paying tax, and contribute to this system are worth something. I wanted to start with looking at traditional indigenous society where elders are actually revered, where elders are valued and play a very important role within the community. Because in many tribal societies, they are the guardians of the tradition. So they're seen as the custodians of tribal tradition, the cultural knowledge, and they are seen as carrying historic wisdom. They also valued advisors. They were served as respected leaders and decision makers within that community. They used for conflict resolution. So because they possess certain abilities like to listen, uh, they understand different perspectives, and they are able to create, in a way, consensus. They're often also seen as spiritual and religious leaders. Um, so they play a vital role in the tribals' cultural rituals, ceremonies, prayers. They provide spiritual guidance, and they ensure the preservation of sacred knowledge and practices. They are also often the keepers of ecological knowledge because they know, of course, the land, the environment, the plants, the animals, and generally have a deep connection to the natural world. So elders are seen as spiritual leaders, guides, uh, keepers of the wisdom, of the traditions, of the ecological equilibrium of the tribe. Now, this is a far cry from what we see elders as. Because we cannot transfer this directly to our societies. Of course, we can't. Um, But what becomes quite obvious when looking at more traditional tribal orientated societies, which are still very much bound to place, nature, and spirit, is that elders are defined as having wisdom. And I wanted to look a bit as a first step um, at what wisdom actually means. Because elder is not automatically connected to age. We can have people who are old and have no wisdom whatsoever. So wisdom, I think, is an important part of being an elder, therefore the expression wise elder. And I think wisdom, you need a few ingredients. And the first one is life experience. I don't think you can be a wise elder without having experienced quite a few facets of life, but also having processed them. You also need to be connected to something wider and big. So I feel a wise elder has to be connected to earth, to the animistic nature of life, to spirit, to that which is so much bigger and wider than ourselves. An elder who is wise also understands that life is a long learning process, and the learning doesn't stop just because you have reached a certain age. So my feeling is that lifelong learning is important, especially philosophy, maybe history, wisdom teachings, spiritual traditions or spiritual values, the learning ongoingly, but also being up to date in a way with modern developments, the developments of technology, of AI, for example, the social medias, and so on and so on. I also feel another point is important to become a wise elder is understanding the human psyche. And we understand the human psyche partly because we understand ourselves. So the looking within, the understanding of how humans process, how humans act and react, the understanding of the human heart and soul in a way, to put it into a cliche. So that means that as an elder, I need to make an effort or need to have made a lifelong effort to understand life and especially the human psyche. But the most important point I want to mention here is an elder has to strive and to a certain extent reach the point where they can really see the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is, in a way, understanding life in its creation, manifestation, and death, but also understanding the universal forces. Seeing the bigger picture. When I'm young and when you are young, it is absolutely right to be here, to be now, and to look into the future and to act and react with the full extent of your feelings. When you are an elder, you are asked to see the bigger picture. So to be still open, to be emotionally present and touched, but not to be overwhelmed any longer. And with that, I come to my last point. I think a wise elder needs to be comfortable with death. And for me personally, that was and still is a difficult subject. But death is inevitable, and the older we get, the closer it comes to us, the more we are confronted with it. And to be comfortable with death, to know that the body will die and go back to the earth, but that the spirit will live on, gives you a kind of freedom which is beyond description in a way. And that leads me to another point, which I feel a wise elder well, encompasses in a way, and that is more freedom, or freedom to a massive extent from the roles, rules, and demands of society, which brings with it an incredible fearlessness, which I have also understood more and more fully over the last few years. The idea of courage, of being free in that sense to stand up for beliefs, for rights, for what I feel is right, is getting easier because society can't do much to me anymore. I have lived a very full life. What am I afraid of? So these are just a few points which I wanted to share with you, and I hope that you found this interesting. I will put another video up about it, and maybe if you want to leave some comments, I would be really grateful. So I hope that has given you food for thought, and we'll start a discussion about elderhood.